Hello, guys, and welcome to the first episode of the Jam-Packed podcast. I'm here with my boys. I've got Alex.
Yo.
And Micky.
Sound as a pound.
And so, for this podcast, I just wanted to sort of get all of us together and just talk about music, because I think all three of us love to talk about music, but we can do it. And
Not really, I don't know what I mean.
I just bought you in.
No.
You're just doing it for the money.
I'm more of a sports fan.
No, yeah. So for the first episode, what I wanted to do was just to get an idea of everyone's taste, and so I thought I'll tell the guys to organise a top 10 of their favourite albums, and we can just sit here and have fun with it.
Yeah, it's a good introducer episode to get to know what we all like.
Yeah.
Every single Eminem album is in my top 10.
Even Revival.
Revival's number one.
Revival, Relapse, Encore. Then
All the rest are not.
yeah,
good.
they're just they're irrelevant, to be honest.
The Eminem show, what he does that.
But what I wanted to ask first was how hard or how easy was it for you guys?
I mean, the easiest part about it was I have a top 6, and that 6 never changes.
Yeah.
And they've been there for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
The most difficult part was I only had 3 slots to put albums into that I absolutely loved, and there's some people I've missed off that I'm actually really guilty about, and it makes me want to cry.
Well, I think that's it with me. I think when I first said it, I was like, because I think there was a certain set of albums that I was always going to include, but then there was like a couple, like the last 2 slots, I think, where I wasn't really too knowledgeable of what I was going to put in. So that's when I just listened to God knows how many albums, and even still, because like I did for Micky, I made this like top 100 chart, and this top 10 that I've made now is just so different in comparison.
Yeah.
Like it just changes so much, because I just listen to music too much, to be honest.
It's so difficult, man.
I mean, I did struggle with it as well. Yeah, I found it hard to cut it down to 10. I could find 13 or 14, but then I couldn't decide which would be in like 8, 9, 10. And they kept changing, like, even just before the day.
Why do you think I had 3 honourable mentions?
That's what
I had to stretch it.
I was like, because I was looking through all these albums, and I was like, I'm just going to end up having another top 10 of honourable mentions if I just carry on, because I think I had like Car Seat Headrest, I had Twin Fantasy, and I had Teens in Denial. I was debating them. I was debating Wish You Were Here, and then even still like Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, like just some of them, and I was just like,
He's cued him in.
I think my honourable mention was Good Kid, Mad City, but I decided to leave it off.
okay.
I listened to that anyway.
It's always worth listening, because I think I remember listening to that when I was it was year 8, and I just remember bopping that album, just not really understanding the whole story of it, and then now that I do and coming back to it and actually listening through it again like properly, like I just sort of recognise how good
it was a solid album. It always has been. I do like it.
My problem with that album is my sister has a habit of latching on to songs and playing them over and over again. And I think in one day, I heard Backseat Freestyle, Mad City, and Swimming Pools way over 20 times each. And from then on, I was like, I'm not listening to this. I'm never going to listen to this. I'm not. I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And then it went on. It was a drama trip with you, Joe, and they were like, and you said, you've got to give it a go. And I went back and I listened to Pimp a Butterfly and like bits from Good Kid, Mad City that I just kind of ignored for like the longest time. Yeah. And I felt like a dick. Like I shouldn't have done it.
I think even still though, like those 3 are like the more mainstream songs, but I still think they're not the best. You got a Good Kid in there, which is just a banging beat, and then you've got Sing About Me I'm Dying of Thirst, which is
the best song in the album.
Insane. But yeah,
Section 80 was good as well.
That's what I mean. I think he did Damn, and it just sort of all fell off.
It's not my favourite.
It just fell off.
It didn't fall off. There were parts about it that I liked, like the Steve Lacy production on Pride is one of it's one of the finest bits of like production like off that album. DNA, it's a bit deaded, but the beat still bangs, and he still sounds hard even on the switch up.
I think for me the main problem with it was just more commercial.
Yeah,
and that's probably why I turn off Good Kid, Mad City a bit more, because it's more commercial. It's more easy listening to.
Yeah.
And it's more sort of overlooked, the whole story of it, which I think is like the main reason why I listen to it.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason why I prefer To Pimp a Butterfly.
I just listen to it for Schoolboy Q saying "yeah," all right. It's the best bit on the album.
Top dog features for ones. But yeah, so we'll make a start on yours, Alex.
Yeah.
Make a start on mine. Well, just a basic overview. It changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
I was struggling
Last minute change.
Yeah, struggling to find some of the albums that I'd put on the list, and it's mostly like rap with more of like a old school influence, but kind of a new school take on it. Things like, well, you'll find out later. With my number
The
one is
suspense.
always been my go-to.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that'll ever change. And some of the albums I've got not personal connections with, but they have sentimental value.
Yeah.
And they're not quite critically acclaimed or anything, but they are good for me.
Yeah.
I feel that.
And at the end, I've got a secret album, which I'm going to use as my honourable mention.
All
It's,
right,
you got a secret album?
Secret
Yeah.
honourable mention.
It's,
All right.
I've liked it for a long time, and
Yeah.
it probably would be one of the albums that I'd listen to if I was on a desert island with no other music.
Yeah.
It's fair enough.
So my 10th spot is
go on.
Die Lit by Playboi Carti.
I love this album. I just think it's just such a meme, and I just love that whole part of it.
It's a good culture around it, and it's a good album as well.
I must admit, I did avoid this album because he did Magnolia, and he had that first, like, was it an EP?
Yeah, he had
Yep.
his first mixtape.
And I was
can't-
like, I didn't really know what to think about it, so I kind of avoided this. But I heard that Pierre on production completely matched, and like the chemistry was there. But I still avoided it. Like this was my first listen of Dilate,
Wow.
just because I didn't really know what to make of Carti.
Yeah.
And then I heard him on Ego, and
yeah.
that was when it, like, because I listened to Magnolia and I kind of liked it, but I didn't know whether I could listen. I'd suffer through a whole album of that.
Yeah.
And then I heard him on Ego with a different like production behind him, and I understood the appeal of the way that he sounds, and he did what he did. And then I heard him behind this production, like just how spacey and just warped and just so quiet, yet it just created an atmosphere and it looped, and it was so smooth.
Yeah.
And he just sounds so good on top of it.
I think that's the main part of it that I like, is just the way that Pierre and Carti just work together and sort of make this madness. I think cuts like Shooter as well. Lil Uzi and Carti, whenever they're on a track, it just bangs. And then just cuts like Fell in Love. The production on that is insane.
The production on the whole album is pretty
Mileage
good, really.
as well.
Yeah.
Chief Keef.
I'm Chief Chicago Drill. I'm just gonna say now, by the way, when it comes to like names of tracks, I'm bad on them because I don't look at like the album as it plays by when I'm listening. I just listen. So I'll maybe catch like a few names of songs here and there, but
some of them I'm the same.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's quite a simple album, but it does well. Like most of the production on most of the songs is on point, like it's perfect, and I really enjoyed some of the features as well, like you were saying.
the feature game on that album is very strong, I must admit.
You don't realise it when you first go into it, but then when you get to the end of it, you realise how many people are on, and it's insane.
I love the bit where he's saying when they're talking, when people have been moaning about mumble rapping, and he says, made $1 million of this mumble rap shit, and it's just there like, it's a fair point. Like if I could mumble into a microphone and do what he's done, make it sound good, and make $1 million off it, I would.
I think it's so surprising as well, the way that he's got Fantano on his side.
Yeah.
Because Fantano, you look at his reviews on this sort of thing, and you always see the same sort of like, nah, it's lazy. He hasn't put much work to the production. It just seems like he just wrote some stuff about girls, cars, whatever.
Yeah.
But Carti's just done it in a way that's appealed to Fantano, which I just think's insane.
I think it's just the mix of both of them, because like he's reviewed Pierre's solo effort, and also he did with, was it Slime Air?
Yeah, that was, I don't know, I think it was that.
And he didn't really like them. I think it's just the chemistry between these two was somehow a perfect blend that hasn't really been touched on in that kind of like space and sound.
I've got an interesting question for you.
Go on then.
Do you think it was luck? Do you think Carti didn't intend it to be like that? Do you think he just made another trap album, but it just turned out that it was really good?
I think the only thing that the only way that you can get a positive answer is looking at his next project and seeing what the acclaim is to that, because part of me thinks that it is, and that he wasn't expecting it to go this big. He was just putting out an album so he can perform, he can make money off it, and it's just turned out to be this like amazing album.
Yeah, I think he always thought the album was good, but I don't know if he expected it to get the critical backing that it's gotten from all like corners of like the music industry.
Because I think as well, the majority of these mumble rap artists that usually come out, like you get, well, Juice WRLD isn't really one, but like you see like Juice WRLD, you see Lil Uzi, and they're just like, I'm gonna make music for me and what I like. Yeah. So if you don't like it, I don't care. And I think that's probably the attitude that he's had and the way that it's got this acclaim. I mean, it can't be.
That's what's done Lil Uzi so well.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good attitude to have, really. If you make music for you and it's how you like it to sound, then people are going to enjoy it because it's your story that you're telling.
Because they can't argue with, oh, this is bad, they've done this bad, because you're just like, well, I like it, so it doesn't matter. Go on then, Alex, what's your number 9?
Number 9, it's Hi, This Is Flume by Flume. Quite a recent release, but it's quite experimental, as Flume always is, but it's got some very trippy tracks in there as well.
Yeah. I think he is very, when it comes to Flume, he's very industrial and like all different sounds that you've never heard before. And just the way that he puts them all together is just really good. And some of the features on here are amazing.
Oh, as well. JPEG, Slow Tie.
Slow Tie.
Slow Tie killed it.
But JPEG just sounds as aggressive and as angry as I'd want him to be on a beat that was presented to him. Like,
I think the flows on that song were just insane, and the beat switch towards the end, and he's just going, oh, it's just so hard.
That man can rap over any beat.
It's perfect. That'll lead into my number 1 spot. But I think one of the kind of issues I had was I think just kind of the glitchiness and the kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Kind of stuck through the whole album. I think the features were a great choice because they just split it up. But there were some points where I was like, oh, I think I could tell that there was something like some of the glitchiness was similar across certain songs. I just wish that I think he'll probably do it next time because he kind of made his name for himself as like kind of a glitchy, like not an EDM but kind of
that kind of style of music.
And then he's gone a bit further with it here, like. Because it takes a lot for someone to make a beat for JPEG Mafia and Slow Tie to rip apart and do it so well. So I'm just hoping on his next effort it's just more laser focused. It's more different though.
Yeah, it's got grit to it. The album.
Yeah, it's got grit. It's got so much grit.
There's a song that I'm going to highlight specifically here. Voices featuring I think it's Cooker.
Okay.
It's a really short song, but he's managed to fit such a good beat switch into it. It starts off like aggressive and, quite hard, but then by the end of it, with the vocals from Cooker, it's really chilled out and mellows out.
Yeah, there's one thing that gets me wet in music, it's a beat switch.
Yeah, you'll see that in my number 2 spot.
So next is my number 8 spot, which is Clockwork Indigo by the Underachievers.
And Flatbush.
Yeah, Flatbush Zombies as well.
I thought coming off this, because I listened to Vacation by Flatbush Zombies and Joey Badass, and I loved that. But I haven't really listened to much else in terms of Flatbush Zombies. But I just think the production on this, like, it's so spaced out and so sort of like something you can just vibe to. And then the bars that come through, which are just hard flows, I just thought it was great.
Yeah. I didn't expect from the beat that opened it. I didn't expect them to attack it the way that they did. And then every single time I found myself just being like, that was just nasty. Like, they just literally sink the teeth into it and rip it apart like it was nothing. And I'm just there like, who finds a pocket like that on a beat like that? It was just really impressive. Yeah. And I didn't really, I remember, I didn't really find myself listening to what they were saying at first. Because I was just so enamored with how well that they managed to ride some of the most weird shit,
atmospheric sort of beats that they put in.
It's they always can though. The Flatbush Zombies always have a good track record with me. I've seen them live a couple of times. And the way they just jump on anything, it always works.
I think that's always good when you've got, in terms of appeal to an artist, like when an artist can jump on any track and just sort of put such a good set of bars and lyrics into it and such appeal. I think that's always something that you got to credit.
The Underachievers themselves are good as well. Like a lot of the solo tracks after the rain. That's another one which is well received.
There was a 7-minute cut on it, wasn't it?
Was that the first one?
I can't remember but it is an insane 7-minute long hardcore rap like, banger. Like holding the tension for that long with such an aggressive beat is so difficult. Like it's basically the equivalent to what like a kind of like black metal album does. You've got like such a long song, yet you're so interested because of how it switches up, but how it keeps that level of aggression, and it just somehow did it so well. Like, I didn't turn off.
Yeah, it didn't
for the
wear
entire
you out
7
or
minutes.
anything.
Yeah, it's one of those songs where it just lasts so long, but you don't notice it. And then suddenly you check that it's ending, and it's like, I've just sat here for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
How?
Like playing NHL, and I was like, oh mate, is that song done?
So what number are you on now?
6.
Number 6 spot is Yesterday's Gone by Loyal Kana. It's quite a sentimental album to me. So we listened to it a lot in uni, and a lot of my friends down there liked it.
Yeah.
It's a super chilled out album. All of the beats are so soft, but then Loyal's kind of monotonal delivery.
Yeah.
Always, you can hear all the words and all the references, and I like that about the
I
album.
must say, I was super impressed with the jazz rap kind of vibe that this gave off, especially from the UK, because the UK jazz scene's blowing up at the moment.
That's Sons of Kemet as well.
Sons of Kemet and Comet is coming and stuff like that. So to hear a proper UK jazz rap album, I was so excited. Like when I heard that first beat and I heard just how smooth and calm he just kind of went over it. I could have jumped like for joy. It was so good. And then some of the little skits, like him talking to his mum and stuff like that. It was just such a sweet album. Like I didn't find myself like breaking my neck listening to it, but I didn't want to. I just wanted it to keep that vibe.
Yeah, I thought that. I think I was saying to you in the car, just like the sort of lo-fi, just sort of calming beat sort of made you focus more on his delivery and what he was saying, which was quite good because it created such a nostalgic feeling. And you could tell that with the album he was going into his past and sort of like looking at where he's come from and everything, and that was just such a really, really good vibe to it. And I mean, look, coming back from it, I think after listening to it, I just thought that it was more like if Kid Cudi had put all of his sort of efforts into writing bars. That's just how I sort of interpreted it, because it is sort of like melancholic and nostalgic, and I thought that's just like similar to Kid Cudi, just with less singing. But
Ottolenghi's a great tune as well. It's such a good like production on it, and the verse is so good.
I was super impressed. Like, I didn't expect it.
So I hadn't heard of Loyal Kana before coming into this.
I heard of his name, but for some reason I think I pinned him with a different artist, because I came in expecting something like more grimy.
Yeah, because I think that's it though. When you look at the UK rap scene, like I've just sort of gone off it, to be honest, because I think it's all sort of grime. And it's either that or UK drill, which I just sort of I just don't.
I'm not a big
see
fan
the
of it.
appeal
I love it all, mate. I must admit. Like there's some like straight UK rap, like Dabbler, like Year of the Monkey. That album, it's some of the funniest and wittiest bars, and that's where I think the UK comes in.
Yeah,
because it's just pure UK humour smacked with this sarcasm.
Yeah, I think that's one thing as well that I do like about the UK scene, is that you get all the references.
Yeah, definitely.
Like
I've never heard a rap song say "tuck chop," and I heard one say it, and I was so like, it's great.
And that's the only really appeal that it has to me. Like you can.
Even Dave is quite a mainstream artist, but if you really listen deeply into his discography, Question Time, that's it's a great song, good references, and then the songs like Streatham highlight some of the issues in London, and he's got some really good.
Yeah, I think that's it. Dave comes through. Dave's one of the strongest for me. He just sort of he brings like his wordplay is so good, and it is like proper complex, but with that UK sort of twist to it that makes it so relatable to us. But yeah, come on then.
I've seen your next one, and I was very happy.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Live. Yeah, number 6.
Number 5, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's fucking 5.
It's number 5.
Oh, is it?
Ooh, maths didn't do you well, did it?
What did you get in maths at all? It's number 5, I swear.
Are you sure?
I just
Come on, man.
Anyways, it's live from the dentist office by
Injuries though.
Yes. So it's quite a sentimental album for me again, because I used to listen to it a lot whilst I was driving around, especially at uni again.
Yeah.
But it's quite one that I enjoy to myself, and it's got, I mean, it's all bangers. It's good track after good track after good track.
Definitely.
And I don't find the need to skip any of it, and I can put it into playlist happily.
Go on.
I've got into the habit now of listening to music while I'm cycling.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Very not safe, because I have both earphones in, blasting at full volume. But music just slaps different when you've got your headphones on.
It's like when you listen to it in the car as well, and you just drive and you just sort of get...
I can't drive yet.
Neither. But it's like you get all of it.
Yeah.
And because it's just like, it's not your main focus, and you just sort of like, you sort of zone out when you drive, and you just sort of hear everything. And I think, yeah.
But yeah, I must admit, I come into Injury Reserve when they dropped the Oh Shit single. And that was when I first caught wind of them. And I was really impressed with that. And I was really impressed with All of the Money. And then... All This Money, sorry. And then they did Floss. Yeah. And that album was incredible. It was so diverse. The beats from Parker were unreal. And Grogsy just sounds like you just... It's just meaty. Like, you're just there and you know that if you did something wrong, he'd smack you, but he'd be happy while doing it. And he wouldn't really feel anything... Like, you wouldn't feel bad about him doing it.
You just expect him to do it.
And then Richie just sounds smooth and just sounds as relaxed as you can be, while also giving off like a vibe for a banger track.
Yeah.
So I went back and I listened to Live from the Dentist Office, I think a year ago.
Yeah.
And there were some tracks in it, like Whatever Dude and stuff like that, and TK TV, and just the beats were the highlight.
Yeah.
I found myself listening to the beats more than I listened to what they were saying. And I went back now, and like there was like Grogsy and Richie were just rapping like it was no one's business back then, and I just felt really guilty for not actually focusing on that and just being a beathead, because I think I was in that kind of mind frame like last year.
I think when I came in to listen to it, because I listened to Floss, and that was like maybe before I went off to uni, but then I didn't really pay much attention to Injury Reserve, because I think at that time I was more into like my sort of trap beats and everything. But then I think coming to listen to this, and then just thought the variety that they had, how experimental they were, and I personally just loved Wow, because of the way that they ripped it. Have you listened to Last Call by Kanye West?
Yeah.
And at the end, he's like 6 minute like massive story of how he got to where he is, and he's like, oh well, I made the song and it's got this hook, and I just because they used that hook, and I was sat there for ages after listening to it, like someone's got to have used this hook, and just saw that towards the end of the song, and I just thought, this is amazing. They've used that so well.
One of the most powerful things I took away from it is when like Richie says on Whatever Dude, where he's like, we're gonna make it someday, whether it's like someday or Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just like that attitude. It's like, because you can tell that they did it, because I think where they're from, is it?
I don't know.
It's somewhere where rap music doesn't really tend to come out. There's
somewhere in America where it's not a main staple.
Yeah, the thing is it Arizona? It begins with an A. And
could be.
they just kind of had their own sound, and it wasn't really like a staple for where they come from either. Yeah, they just went from there, took over there, and now they're like on the focus point for every kind of bat rap, like rap kids, like like dream. Just everyone just looks at them and like, it's just
I'm good. I'm gutted that I just didn't, sort of take them more seriously sooner, because after listening to this, I just thought bangers.
Yeah. So number 5, it's The Man with the Foggy Eyes by Verb T.
This is the one that you've just changed.
I was going to say this was a late edition, so I'm not sure if Joe or Micky have
So
listened to it.
let's just say it was Novelist Guy by Novelist.
Yes.
And so what I want to ask you is, why did you change it?
Well, I always thought that was, if I was going to change one, it would have been that. And I would have just knocked it down a place. But then when I really thought about it, I thought, actually, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did some of these other albums.
So I think when I listened to that album, it was very similar. I think that's just it. And when the album, you'll see this with one of your spots. When an album just has so many songs that just sort of gel into one, I just sort of don't enjoy it as much, because I just see it all as one song.
I kind of felt that at first, but the bass lines on that Novelist Guy record.
Yeah.
Like some of the bass lines just made me just want to enjoy it, so I did.
Yeah.
But let's carry on with
Go on,
Man with the Foggy Eyes.
So who's it by?
So it's by Verb T. He's a UK artist, and I've only recently got into him. It was maybe about a month ago, or a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I went and saw Ocean Wisdom.
Yeah.
And through Ocean Wisdom, I found out about Verb T, and I was just having a listen through his records. And his biggest song is called Where You Find Me, and it's quite an upbeat track about how he doesn't really like other people.
Because have you got a Verb T song on our playlist?
There's a couple, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm loving the like kind of old school influence. It's more of like a boom bap kind of thing, but then it's such a new style of it, the way the vocals are delivered and stuff. It's got some good references as well. So there's a track in there called Say It Again, which is it steals a flow from an old Verb T song, which is Where You Find Me. Yeah. So he goes into it.
Oh, right, okay.
And he says, it's on about how everyone thinks that he should go back to what I used to be and not do his more recent, not depressing stuff, but I did put that in air quotes, by the way. More like kind of dark, about his deep hurt, as he says. But then in the second verse of it, he takes the first verse of Where You Find Me, the exact flow of that, and the same rhyme scheme, but just changes some of the words. And it's such a, it's so satirical and it works so well.
It's funny that it's called Say It Again as well.
Exactly.
Go on then, what's your next spot? Is it number 4? Or
yes, number 4. So it's Saturation 2 by Brockhampton. It's my favourite Brockhampton album. I can't go wrong with it. I could go on for hours about any song in it.
There are some tracks on that album that are just unreal.
Standouts for me are Sweet as an obvious one, Junkie as well.
Yeah.
And I love the Bareface. I love all the Bareface songs. I love Summer and Sunny as well.
Sunny just makes me want to like jump for a wall.
I know. It's such a summer vibe to it. It is such a great song. But that's the one. It's just you get like the first couple of cuts where it's like Jello. Gummies is more of a standout, but Jello, like Tokyo, and then like Chicken Fight,
and that's Queer, Jesus Gamba, all tunes.
I just think that those, like, it's just like the more rap central ones. They just all sort of blend into one for me, and it's like because I can't tell the difference between like Tokyo and Jesus. No, not Tokyo and Jesus. Tokyo and Jello.
Really?
Yeah. Like
Joba's verse on Tokyo shines.
Yeah, I know that's the first verse, but it's just more the chorus.
Fuck Dulce and Gabbana, by the
way. Fight especially is one that I want to highlight because that's Amia's first verse. Yeah,
I must admit, when everything came out about Amir and he was left from the group, and I didn't go back to Saturation 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah,
unless there were songs without him on for over a year.
But it's quite hard because have you seen that as well? Kevin Abstract has said that Iridescence didn't get the acclaim that they wanted. And he reckons
I think that is because of the lack of Amir.
Because he said it's the lack of Amir. Because he's on so many, and you don't even realise the effect that he had because he was like the
kind of
bad man. He was the image of them. If you look at the Saturation albums, he's the guy on the cover.
It was so difficult because I think the only songs I've got without Amir, I think, were Swim. I don't think he appears on, and then
like all the Bareface cuts,
the Bareface cuts, and then Zipper.
Wow.
And Rental. He doesn't appear as much on Saturation 3, and I do really like Saturation 3, so that was a good thing for me. But going back and listening to them all, and just realising that like I can't not listen to something because of what the artist has done.
I think as well, like,
unless it's R. Kelly, and then I won't listen to him ever. I didn't do from the age of 10, and I still won't do.
So, do you separate art from artist?
I try my best. There are some cases where I don't. Usually, it's if the artist doesn't get money from me listening to them. So if they're dead, or
so Michael Jackson, for example.
Or John Lennon. I don't like because he's dead. He's not going to get any money from me buying a Beatles record. But Yoko might, and Yoko's the one I want to give the money to because he punched her in the face.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, pleasant.
Yeah,
but
let's move on.
So this is the number 3 spot. It's Year of the Snitch. It's the most recent album by Death Grips.
I think listening to this I think my favourite Death Grips record is Bottomless Pit.
Yeah.
Bottomless Pit.
I think that's probably my fave. But I think after listening to this, it was I think for Death Grips, not for anyone else, but for Death Grips, it was a lot more sort of like mainstream sounding. I thought it was a lot more. It was just sort of a lot more, tamer.
I didn't find that at all.
Really?
No, I didn't like. I'm used to stuff that happened off Bottomless Pit because I've had a rich background in like kind of like metal, like drum, like blast beats on drums and stuff like that. And Money Stores, like they're, I think, most easiest album to get into. Yeah. But I first got into Death Grips from is it ex-military with
the first album.
Spread Eagle Across the Block and stuff like that. Just kind of like the glitchy, just blow out like your audio kind of music. But this Year of the Snitch was just a completely different direction from the stuff that they've listened to in my like the catalog. Like just the weird samples, like the drums were just off kilter. Like it didn't sound like he was like blast beat or like kind of rock or drumming or anything like that. They were just off kilter, and like the production with like some of like there was like a freak show like kind of like instrumental kind of like stuff like that. I just gave off this very wrong atmosphere, and MC Ride is mental as ever, and he just sounds like he doesn't really know what he's doing, but at the same time you know that he does because of how he's saying it. Yeah. So it just everything is kind of upsetting in a nicely disgusting way.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I really fucked with this.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Alex, though, because obviously every Death Grips record. Have you listened to the majority of Death Grips records?
I've only heard Bottomless Pit and Year of the Snitch, so I'm not really that.
Because I was gonna say, like, because obviously they've got such a broad sort of range. I was just gonna say, why would you put that above the rest? But we can come back to that at some point.
Yeah. Well, it's only really because I've got into them very recently. Yeah. Maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and when I heard that album, I thought, oh, it's amazing. It's such a good album. But then when I went and listened to some other discography, so Bottomless Pit, I didn't enjoy it as much.
So I think as well with Death Grips, it's a lot because when I first listened to the Money Store, it was a lot to it took me a long while to sort of get into the album because it is such a weirdly different sound. But once you get into it, you sort of appreciate it more because it's so different. Yeah, so I think that's the only thing.
I was I think lucky to kind of be my Bates entry point as I think ex-military and Guillotine, because I was listening to it like, what is this? Like, because I was straight. Like when it comes to listening to rap music, it was early 2000s, that era I kind of only listened to. Then I went back to the 90s golden era. Yeah. And then like a bit of gangster rap, and then I listened to all like the classics from the 70s, like Curtis Blow, Grandmaster Flash and stuff like that. I just loved straight hip hop from its eras. Yeah. But this just broke out of any kind of defining time like you can't, in the genre.
You can't sort of put Death Grips in a group with someone else.
No.
There's no chance.
Like just everything just is so different, and just the group dynamic. Like a drummer, a producer, and a guy who
just
screams, but with such force that you just kind of you want to listen to him, so he doesn't like jump out your headphones and punch you in the mouth.
It's a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
What would you? What's
number two? It's Nostalgia Ultra by Frank Ocean. It's his first album. It's got some great tracks on there, some great samples from American Wedding, sampled by Hotel California, Nature Feels of Electric Feels. Some good references.
I think that's what I love. I think because a good amount. I think there's There Will Be Tears. That's Mr. Hudson's song, and the first half is Mr. Hudson's song. Strawberry Swing is Coldplay. The last half of that's Coldplay, and then like the cuts before, they're all like little snippets from the album that the song that's sampled is taken from. So I think the first track, which is Street Fighter, that takes Lovers in Japan, which is off Viva La Vida, which is also the same record that Strawberry Swing's on. And I like that sort of creativity, but I just think I'm just gutted that I can't listen to it on like a wider scale, because I think the way that he sort of edited those songs and sort of changed them into a way that sort of details what he's been through in his life, while also taking that from someone else. I think that's really, really creative, but I think it's going to be a very, very hard job to clear the samples on that album.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought my phone had broken when I heard the Hotel California like guitar lick start, because I hadn't listened to it. I'd listened to Blonde,
Yeah.
And I'd listened to bits of Channel Orange, and I did really like Frank Ocean, but I never really listened to a full album experience from him for some strange reason. So I was just like, I was like, what's going on? Like, was my dad hijacked my phone? Why is Hotel California starting? And then he just kind of flipped the story of it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I realised that he was doing it all throughout the album. And it was just so creative. Like, he didn't really do much from build an album from ground up kind of sense. But it's like the new Kieran J. Callanan album, The Return to Centre. It's just a creative way of taking something that's done and using it to aid yourself. And I think like this album kind of put him as a solo artist on the map, because On Future had their sound. It was grimy, goofy. It didn't really focus or go anywhere. It was just them doing what they wanted to do, and then it was just this beautiful little like R&B, like lo-fi kind of album just blossomed out of it, and everyone was like, "Oh."
But that's it as well, because you got like the internet side of things and the SID side of things from it as well. And I just think that when people think of Odd Future, that's what they think of. They think of the sort of goofball side of it, and Tyler the Creator just saying and doing whatever he wants.
Camp Flognaw kind of vibes. Right. So should we move on to number one?
Absolutely, you're number one.
It's All American Badass by Joey Badass. Well, I guess All American Badass. It's such a good politically influenced album. It's got so many valid points and it's real, I don't want to say the word woke, but it's woke. It's every song's just fire, and I could listen to them all just on repeat all the time.
Yeah, you feel what he's saying, and I think that's what makes it better than most like political rap albums out there. It's like the difference between like Eminem's Unstoppable and Ice Cube's Good Cop, Bad Cop. Ice Cube sounded angry and sounded like he meant it, whereas Eminem just kind of trying to stick to that flow sounded like he didn't, and then I gravitated towards this because Joey sounded pissed at some points on this album, like points where he wasn't really holding on to like the beat, like on Temptation. Like his vocal pattern just so weird, and you can't really tell whether he meant it or not, or whether it's just in the moment thing, but you feel it. And then you've got the sample from I can't remember the name of the little girl when she stands up and she's talking about the
little girl,
the one on Temptation,
scene about not being treated like equally and stuff like that, and it's just you feel it.
It's a very emotional album.
Because you sense it. You sense it on Ring the Alarm. I don't know if that's supposed to be a political one, but the delivery, is it Nick Caution and Kirk Knight who are on that as well? Because I think, is it Kirk Knight, the one from
Flatbush
Pro Era?
Oh,
is he from Flatbush?
I think there is a song with the Flatbush Zombies. One of them featuring on it.
I'm trying to think, because it's the guy who's just got the proper raspy voice and he just sounds angry all the time. But you hear it, and you hear it on Schoolboy Q's verse. Yeah,
Ring the Alarm is a highlight for me, because that is a great, just kind of,
I think the
posse cut kind of.
I think that's it. I think for it just reminds me of old school Joey Badass, and I think this album is not supposed to be old school Joey Badass, because old school Joey Badass is just sort of get some like lo-fi beats, rap about smoking weed or whatever.
But which had Paper Trails,
that was a good song,
which is one of his most popular, but it kind of, I think, alluded to this want to do songs like it,
because I love the Final Cut American Idol. I love that. I just think the beat switch where it is 100%. It's just so minimal, and it is just him just going on Donald Trump.
And Babylon's a good song as well, with the Chronics feature.
Chronics. Some of his work like solo is just really.
So that's my top 10.
Yeah.
But this secret album. I'm going to call it an honourable mention.
Okay.
It's Stoney by Post Malone.
Ooh. Oh,
I do.
Didn't expect that.
I was going to say, most people, because I think not a massive fan.
I rate that album personally. I think the vibe, because Fantano gave it a not good.
Yeah,
it's massive fat not good.
What do you think of it,
there are songs that I'd go back to, but there is a lot of material on that album that just didn't vibe with me.
Yeah.
I think it was just because he didn't like. You hear the difference between him on that and Beer Bongs and Bentleys.
I think he's more developed.
Out.
Yeah, he's more developed on that. But I think that.
Why didn't he do it on
I think
Stoney?
That was it though. That was his debut.
Yeah.
And I think some of they are sort of like all very similar, and there are some cuts that you can just tell are just filler. Put a catchy hook on there, put some Post Malone singing. Just, there we go.
That's why it didn't make it into my top 10, because there is some tracks on there that I couldn't even name the title if you told me them. Yeah. But there is some tracks on there that are just really well delivered, really well produced, and I do like parts of the album.
I think this whole it is sort of the vibe you get when you're just sort of sat in your room on your ones with just like a glass, just like a bottle of whiskey probably, just sort of contemplating everything.
A bottle of Buffalo Trace, just completely destroying your liver.
It's bourbon, not whiskey.
I was gonna. So what I was gonna say before we move on is just so. How confident are you in this top 10, and how long will it be before it changes?
That's a hard one to answer, because at the moment I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah. But say I over the next few weeks heard a good album or a new release came out that I really enjoyed, it might end up changing.
Yeah.
So I'll keep my options open to change it, but for now I'm pretty confident with the ranking.
All right. Well then we'll move on to mine.
Alrighty, Joe. On to yours.
Let's do it. So for my honourable mention, I had The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me by Brand New. I just thought it was emo rock, and it was just a different way. And I only got into it because I saw the album cover and I just thought that's just a weird thing to look at. I just sort of got into it. I just thought some of the instrumentals on them are just insane, and the screaming and just sort of the delivery and the sort of passion that goes into it. I just thought that.
I must admit that in this list of getting through all these albums, that was the first one I listened to. I must admit I did find myself enjoying the instrumental kind of backbone to it more than the vocals, because I'm just someone who was like kind of has been turned off by emo vocals kind of before. Like sometimes they really click and sometimes they don't, and I found that like with some tracks on the album it really clicked, and then sometimes I was just kind of like off. But the instrumentals the instrumentation stayed pretty much on point throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
So would you say you're a Lil Peep fan
then? It depends. I really didn't get into Lil Peep at some points. There were some songs that I just kind of enjoyed because of the vibe, like Save That Shit or Ben's Truck. Yeah. But I don't know, the kind of emo rap thing, it depends on the sound of it, because if emo rap is such a broad thing. It started like the first few instances of it came out, I think like the 80s, where people started talking about the feelings like in the rap music. But the idea of blending it with emo palettes wasn't really considered. And sometimes it hits really well, like Juice WRLD. What is it? It was a single for his recent album. I can't remember what it's called. Robbery. I really like that. I really like that, and it was literally a straight emo rap blend that was like nothing more to it, and I did find myself really liking it somehow, but sometimes it just doesn't land.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I'll move on to my number 10, which is see Michael just going mental. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And I just I remember sort of wanting to broaden in my range of music taste, and I just thought I'd start off with this album because it is the main album. If someone just goes to your best album of all time, it's pretty much always Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. And I just remember listening to it and just sort of being like, this is as good as everyone says it is. Just sort of the different, I don't know how to explain it, just sort of, you get like Breathe, which is just sort of so mellow and so chilled, and then you get Time and Money, which are just sort of thrash, and then you get cuts like Great Gig in the Sky, which just so trippy.
The vocals on that are still one of the most some of the most impressive vocals on a song ever. It's just that those kind of vocals, those kind of like gospel in a sense, just screaming to the sky, but also sounding as pristine and as pleasant as ever kind of singing always gets me so excited. And I must admit, I first listened to this album very young. My dad's a massive Pink Floyd fan, and this is like a great introduction into like the discography. I wouldn't say it's the best Pink Floyd album by any stretch.
We'll get to that.
But I will say that as an album, without the context of Pink Floyd's like discography,
Yeah.
it is a really good album. Like it kind of rips a bit from like soul and some other kind of like aspects of music, but it still does it in a nice way. Like Money, as much as that is a robbery of certain sounds, it still sounds really good, and I can't fault it for that. Like if it robbed and it sounded bad, I'd be like, oh no. But I really mess with like every song on the album, and I think that's why I don't discredit it as a good album.
That's what I was gonna say as well. Like some of the throwaway in quotation marks, sort of those sorts of songs, like Any Colour You Like. I love that just for the synth.
Yeah, such a good track.
And what's the first one? It's On the Run. Before you get into Time, I just thought like some of the shorter songs, and then it ends on Brain Damage and Eclipse, which it's just such a good way to end it and just round it all up.
It's also funny that this album is brought into the Wall movie, because when he's a kid, he's writing poetry in his class, and the teacher takes it off him, and he's reading out, and he's reading the lyrics to Money, and it's basically it's like a nice way of using your previous work to highlight how this kind of film represents you, and how you were told that you couldn't do anything with it, and you've kind of took it to this platform that you probably considered one of the best prog rock and just rock outfits ever by like a lot of people.
You got anything to say on it, Alex? Or
Nothing to add.
And so all right, we'll move on. So my next one was Sunbather, which is a bit of a odd one. It sort of blends post rock elements with hardcore metal and screamo music, and I just thought for the different sort of things that they all sort of mesh together so well. And it's like 7 cuts long, and I think the 3 cuts in between do such a good job of just sort of mellowing it out before coming back into these harsh drum focused sort of. And then I think as well to say that they're so long, these cuts, because it's like 9 minutes, 14 minutes, 10 minutes. I think for that though, because they split it up so well, and sort of end the cuts on sort of some nice sort of calming tracks to sort of lead into the next song. And I just thought it just did it all together so I just found it so interesting.
For this record, I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it, but I struggled to enjoy it.
I could see that.
It was a bit, not too much, but going that kind of way.
Yeah.
It is a struggle.
Yeah.
It's so, like, I've talked to Joe about this before. Long tracks always scare me, because my attention span sometimes just falters unless it's super hardcore.
Yeah.
Like the 8-minute track off the end of the Nails album.
Yeah.
Like unless it's super hardcore and I feel like I'm probably gonna die by the end of listening to it, I don't tend to like click with it whatsoever.
I get that.
I found some of the songs such a struggle, and I feel bad because I can see I see the appeal and I see why people like them. It's like with To Be Kind, but like my head just doesn't take it.
Yeah, I think it does take a lot of sort of gearing up before you listen to it, but I think the more you sort of get into it, I think it's just the same with every album. The more you listen to it, the more you appreciate what they all do.
I'll have to give it another.
But yeah, I think that was it, because I like To Be Kind as well. I've listened to it 3 times, which is like 6 hours of my life.
3 times more than I've got through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same. But it's on a similar thing. Not in musical, but in the length with Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix. Because the first time I heard it, I got maybe 2 or 3 minutes in, and I thought, Jesus. But then when I got more into it and listened to it more, I could get through the whole song and be like, oh, it's finished already. Yeah. And I wouldn't. And I think that's the kind of thing, and I do need to give it more of a chance.
I think after listening to To Be Kind, I just think long tracks just sort of after listening to Bring the Sun, Tucson Louverture, which is 34 minutes long. Yeah. And I think after getting through that and just sort of like, I see like a 9-minute, I'm like, all right, okay. It's just sort of like, it's something else. And I think the majority of the times that I listen to it now, I am just sort of going through and just being like, all right, that was 9 minutes.
Yeah, I think your next album is going to prove me to be quite hypocritical of the previous statement I said about Sunbather.
Well, my next album is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West.
Yeah.
I think this album, I think I've said, it was, I think when I showed you my top 100, it was number 3. And I've just dropped it down because I think it is a good album throughout, but you get past Runaway and it's Hell of a Life, Blame Game, and Lost in the World. And I think Lost in the World's a very good track. I think Blame Game's a good track, but I just don't think they don't have the sort of grandiose sort of appeal that the first half of the album has. And I think that's just sort of what lets it down, because I think after Runaway you can probably just turn it off. You're not missing anything.
I must admit, I avoided this album for a while due to the hype. I like, this is going to sound funny, but Saints Row 3, Power, that was my jam, because that was like the best mission in the game. That's the soundtrack playing. It's in the car radio, and it was for the trailer of the game. And I did really like Power, but I didn't delve past that with this album for such a long time until I listened to The Life of Pablo, and then I decided to give this album a full listen. And even though sometimes, like, Kanye on this album lyrically sometimes misses, but it's Kanye, and you expect that sometimes.
Because I think Kanye isn't really known for his lyrical prowess, is he? But I think on like Gorgeous is my favourite Kanye West song, and the bars that he and Raekwon put through on that is just amazing.
He does put through some great lyrics on this album though. Like, I must admit though, the production, back to front, it's some of the most gorgeous yet unique hip hop production of its time.
That's what I thought. I said this in my notes. I just thought it was a perfect sort of in between Kanye's first Graduation trilogy and then sort of maybe like 808 through to Life of Pablo. Sort of the experimental side. It was a good in between and sort of matching both of them. The
production is the amalgamation, I think, of stuff that he's learned from deviating from that old, like, I think, soul blend. Yeah, it's like the synth work on on 808s. Is nice, but on this, it's really fucking nice. Yeah, it's like Flower Boy and Igor. It's like everything that you've kind of heard snippets of him being able to do, and it's perfect. The production on this is it's almost untoppable in terms of his like discography.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of experimental at the time, and it was his first album where he more deviated, and I do like that. But I was in a similar boat to you, Mickey, where I didn't listen to it. I didn't really give it a chance because I was more, I like the old Kanye. And then it was after The Life of Pablo when I really enjoyed that record that I went back and listened to this and 808s and all that kind of thing.
I felt bad after really liking Life of Pablo. I was like, I've missed out on like possibly 2 really good albums, and I did. Felt real bad.
Move on then. So I've then got Aquemini by Outkast, which is my favourite Outkast album. I think that, again, like The Life of Pablo, it's sort of the in-between between the more experimental, deviant version of Outkast and the sort of young Atlanta natives who just coming up into the game, and the rap style was just so different. It was just a nice in-between. And I think similar to Dark Side of the Moon, the tracks that you don't really think of, like Slump, Mamacita, West Savannah, You're Scared, that you just don't really sort of go to, they bring so much to the album.
I really feel like I don't need to know the names of some of the tracks of this album, because the whole album back to front, it's just an amazing blend ride. Like this, like some of the snippets as well. Like they just kind of, it does tell this kind of story of them being like unapologetic after 80 aliens. You just feel like they didn't care, and that's what made Outkast like, if not the greatest like rap group and duo of all time. They're so unapologetically like different, and they rock it.
I was going to say the first verse on the album from Andre on Return of the G is one of my favourites, just because like the way he ends it, just like, what's wrong with Andre, you big boy, why isn't he rapping about gangsters and stuff? And he's just like, I think that's just a perfect way to describe the album, as well as Andre's mindset.
The little skit when it's like the people in the record store, it's like, I've got that new Outkast. It's like, I don't want to listen to no fucking Outkast talking about aliens or whatever.
Well, I've got an interesting question. Who do you think shines more, Big Boy or Andre?
I personally love Andre more.
Yeah.
I think I love Big Boy, and sometimes I even just sort of sit there and expect it to be Andre because he's rapping so good, and then just be like, oh no, it's Big Boy, damn. Because that's it. I think after listening to the Speaker Box album again, I just sort of thought, because I listened to it and I was just like, Speaker Box just comes through on so many levels, and it just shows that Big Boy is, because everyone just sort of goes towards Andre. But Big Boy has got his own sort of way of doing it, and his way that is as good. And Andre said that he, why would everyone want to pick me when I'm on some soulful sort of deep shit, when Big Boy is doing all these battle raps and all this sort of thing. But I just think that's what brings me to him more, because he is so philosophical.
Yeah, I think Big Boy shines as as the rapper on this album. It's just some of his flows, some of his pockets, like some of the things that he just kind of says aren't as in depth, but the way he raps is just on another level. And I think people he does get somehow discredited by some people because he's not,
because Andre has just got this massive, wide sort of acclaim. Yeah, and people consider him to be the GOAT, but I mean, you have to look at Big Boy if you're going to look at Andre. I think that's the only thing.
Together, they are unstoppable. It's one of the most solid discographies of any hip hop outfit ever.
I think we'll have to discuss that further in an episode.
Probably
100%
soon.
Must say Rosa Parks tune.
Rosa Parks,
and they managed to somehow upset Rosa Parks herself with the song, and it's just like. The whole album just has a weird, it's such a weird placement in their catalogue. It
is sort of like it just sort of stands out a bit more, I think.
It is like a kind of, there's loads of peaks, and then there's the peak, and I can see why people see this album as that.
We'll move on. My next one, which I thought, because I don't think you guys really listen to Radiohead, so I thought this would be
not really.
I'm a fan of some records, but some I'm not a massive fan of.
Yeah, but my next choice is a very, very basic one. It's OK Computer, just for the way that I think Radiohead with this album, they came into it and they'd been touring, and they'd sort of changed the way they were going to record. They recorded in this massive old mansion or something, and they wanted to sort of bring a record that sort of faced the new technology coming in. And that's why everyone just thinks it's a record before its time. And I think that sort of side of it as well. And the opening track, Airbag, brings forward a message that technology has the power to kill you, but an airbag saved his life. As in, it also has the power to kill you, but also at the same time sort of bring something that will save you. And then that sort of different to the penultimate track, Lucky, in which he survives a plane crash. So it's sort of a different sort of angle on it.
I must admit, when it comes to Radiohead, I am the person who says that my favourite Radiohead song is Creep, just to get people annoyed, because I never have really gotten into them.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because loads of people told me the appeal behind them, and I get it, but for some reason it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing whatsoever. It might change as I get older. I don't know.
That's the thing. For me, some albums I enjoy and some I don't.
Yeah.
OK Computer I did really enjoy, and I agree with Joe. Lucky was a great track as well, probably my favourite.
I just love the production on Letdown's one of my favourite songs of all time. And No Surprises as well. I just thought the little melodies in that, and Tom York's voice is just angelic. I'm sorry. But yeah,
I'm loving the next album, by the way.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to talk about. This is Some Rap Songs by Earl Sweatshirt, and I was very much debating putting I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside in, but I just thought Some Rap Songs brings so much more to Earl into it. To say that it's 25 minutes long, he puts so much into that.
This is would have been for me the logical next step.
Yeah.
After I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. It's just everything's more whacked out, and it just sounds like Earl always has had one of the strangest yet most amazing, yet doesn't sound technical, yet when you look into it, it is one of the most difficult kind of rhyme schemes and flows to break down, and he just shines on this album. Like Azuka. There's a thing on YouTube.
There's a bar breakdown. I've seen that. Yeah.
And it's just you really get to see how impressive a rap artist is when you really break down how they fit everything together. And Azuka is the best example of that.
This album's got a lot more to Earl's personality because he took a large part in the production side of it, and like obviously he included a sample of his uncle's band in the final track Riot, which I thought was really, really cool because the lyric leading up to that was in Peanut was my uncle Drew or something like that. And then it just leads into that song, and I just saw that and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
It's the weirdest thing about the album is the tracks are so small. You feel like the ideas, yet they're so well done that you see them as full fleshed out songs.
I think that goes in with the mixing as well, and I think that Earl did that on purpose, just because.
I mean, everything that you just said kind of applies to I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside as well, though, because for me, I don't think I could pick one. They're both so good.
I can see that.
And I enjoy the production and the verses on some rap songs, but then just some songs on I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside just hit so hard.
I think as well you can see his sort of influence in MF Doom come through, as well as his personal side and his personal life, because obviously he had the issue with his dad and his uncle died as well. Yeah. And like just sort of all that coming together to sort of create such a personal and deep album, but at the front layer you just sort of expect it, you just sort of look at it and you're just like, what is going on?
We can bite into Earl a bit more on my number one because I have a question to pose for you when we discuss that one.
Alright, okay.
But your next album?
My next album is a very similar one to one of Alex's. It's a first
name's familiar.
I'm getting a bit of deja vu. It's the first Saturation cut from Brockhampton, and I just remember getting this album from you, Micky, in Drama. I just been like, and you just said, the first track, he's just like, I'll break your neck so you can watch your back. I was like, so oh my god! And I just remember downloading it and listening to it in Form, and I was just like, so I listened to Heat, and I was like, oh my god, this is so harsh. And then it transferred into Gold, and you're just like, what? This is such a weird transition. And then Star came on. And the references from Star, like I got every single one of them, and I was like, "This is one of the most amazing things ever."
I caught Saturation, Brockhampton when the Heat single dropped.
Yeah,
and I was I don't know how I come across it, but I did, and then I was like, "Shit!" Like that is one of the purest, like hardcore rap songs that I've heard in a long time. And it's a big group, and no one's overshadowed. It was such a band beat down of like a rap track, and then they dropped Gold as the next single.
Yeah,
and I was like, what is going on? Like, where have they come from?
Why are they so different?
I was impressed before I'd even listened to the full album, and then Star was the next single, which we talked about, and then Face was just like. So it just flipped on it, and I was just like, "What is going on? Like, what? Why has this just come out of nowhere? Why is it just kind of become like one of the most exciting things I'm excited for?"
Yeah,
and then it dropped, and nothing disappointed. My jaw was on the floor.
It was. I mean, it's such a good album because it does have the aspects of songs like Heat and Star that go really hard, but then. Again, like you said, songs like Face that are just so chilled out, and it just works so well together.
I think that's why I put it over the other albums, just because the initial, because it's just the impact of it, because it was the first one, and then the variety that they delivered on it with just because even still you had like Trip, Swim, which Swim is my personal fave, and like you had like Boys, and they had these trap sounding ones, and then I think. What sort of put me over the edge on the other two, because I went back and sort of tried ranking them, all the songs. And I think you have like the cuts that no one really cares for, which are like Tupac, like Fake Cash, Bank, and then Bump, which is a bit of a weird one.
Bump is
I kind of like it, I'm a big fan.
It's alright, but for me it is the weakest track out of them all, but I still fucks with it. I was going to
say, to be the weakest track on Saturation is still a good thing.
Yeah, it's still a good thing. Just some of the ways that they did it, like Boys.
Boys is just
that is such a deviation,
Yeah.
like from the rap sound that they'd made on the first 3 tracks up until that point, and then you just got kind of this, like this kind of repetitive, like these like kind of, not like I want to say like early kind of Buster kind of like ways of doing it, like this, like the same like rhyme scheme, the same kind of like flow, and just continuing it but changing what you're saying, and it's still sounding fresh.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was nothing like nothing like the 3 tracks before, and then after that it was fake, as I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
Fake. Yeah, I think it's fake.
And that,
Oh no, it's
like,
Tupac.
it's Tupac, and then it's fake. The pitch shifted vocals as well. Where'd they come from?
Because that was it. It was when I was listening to Trip, and I thought there was a woman as a part of it, but it's Kevin Abstract with like how much auto-tune.
Oh,
I think it's just amazing.
It's an achievement in the genre, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we'll move on to my next album, which is a bit of a, I think none of you guys had really heard of this before going in.
I've seen the cover art on some kind of like indie stuff somewhere.
I was going to say no, I'd not heard of it.
But it's The Glow Part 2 by the Microphones. And I remember, because I think after first listen, I sort of was like, this is a really good album, but I didn't really look past that. And then I went through all of the because I found out it was a concept album. I was like, right, I'm going to have another look at this, have a look at the concept and stuff. And so I found the concept, and it was just amazing going through it, because it is just a progressive journey from, because the Glow, because obviously it's part 2, the first Glow song was like this 11-minute cut from the last album about how perfect a relationship he's in. And they've got the glow, which is like some sort of like magic thing that a relationship has. And when you've got the glow, you know you're going the full length. And so before this album, he broke up with that girl. And so the whole album is basically transitioning from I Want Wind to Blow, which is basically I just want to go to another place where I'm not, surrounded by the thought of this girl. And then by the end of the album, it all just sort of leads towards his death in a sense. And on the final track, which is My Warm Blood, you sort of get like this, it's more to do with like how he's with these insects and they're feeding off him, so he has got some use in life. And I thought that just really hit me. And then the end of the track is just this ambient sort of sound that you get throughout the whole album, as well as the strings from the first track, I Want Wind to Blow. And I just thought that was just amazing, as well as the heartbeat that cut it up. And I just thought,
I must admit, I first listened to this while I was at work, because when the shop shut, I'm allowed to have my earphones in, and I did get that there was a theme and a story to it, because of how well it kind of builds this atmosphere. The thing that impressed me the most is how different not only the instrumentation was, the vocals throughout the album. They never were pinned down. And I was just listening to it like, is this like, have I shuffled on to the next album? Every time, like his vocals were just impressive, but never sat still. Like I love Rex Orange County, but his vocals are always the same, and I like that. I didn't expect that with this, and it shocked me, and I think that's why this album impressed me far more than it would have done if it was any other kind of vocal on top of it.
I mean, I didn't expect it to be like it was when I first heard it, and obviously it was a big variety as well. But I listened to it whilst driving, and I didn't realise that there was a previous, Glow Part 1. I didn't even cross my mind.
That's what I mean. I wasn't expecting it, and I just saw it, because there was a Gleam part, because it's the Gleam Part 2 on the album as well, and there's another Gleam song. So I just thought I'd just sort of get a good background to it. And then as well, I think it is because Fantano did a classic review on it, and it is like a good 20 minutes long. Like he talks a good while about it. It's one of his
I'm going to have to revisit it after now that I know what it's more about.
The context.
After watching Fantano's review, I just sort of realised like how well it all came together. And then I went back to it again, and it just all sort of clicked, and I was just like, this is such an amazing album.
Speaking of amazing albums,
my number 2 is Blonde by Frank Ocean, which I can't think of any words to sort of get. Just the whole nostalgic feel to this album is amazing, and the experimentation that he delivers on Nikes, on Nights, on Self Control, Siegfried, and as well the beat switch on Nikes, as we said before. just most insane things, and as well as the meme as well that like the beat switching Nike sort of is the middle point of the album, sort of taking a more darker look at Frank's past, whereas the first half was more lighthearted, and I've listened to it again, you can see that.
Yeah, I think this album also fuels the flame to why people think of Andre more than Big Boy.
Yeah. Oh my God, that feature.
Definitely.
That verse, it's just the last bar when he just says, I'm trying to think, it's like something to do with, I thought I was living every word, was I working just way too hard?
Yeah.
I was like, what?
But I must admit, with this album, when I first listened to it, it was just so nice. And everything just sounded so blissful, but it was its own sense of bliss. And I kind of felt that because I love industry fuckovers and just kind of like people who do anything to mess with the kind of big like corporate bubble that they're in. And this album's just the testament to that. Like you can feel the freedom in the fact that he literally just before he dropped the album
got out of a
destroyed his company basically.
I think it is part of. He was working as part of Universal Music Group, and I feel like that's got something to do with how they've clamped down on so much since.
Yeah.
Because he messed them about for 20 mil or something stupid.
Yeah, he destroyed them, and that makes this album so because you can feel the kind of freedom in the music, and that freedom just oozes into you when you listen to it.
Yeah.
Like Solo is my favourite song.
I was going to say Solo's a great track, and Nike's as well.
Yeah,
like
Nike's I love. I think as well it shows some of Frank's rapping, because I put Futura Free on our playlist, and I think the verse from him on that is amazing, as well as the second half of Nike's.
I must admit, he sounds impeccable as a singer on this album, as well, which I didn't expect when I first listened to him, because I knew him from the Odd Future kind of camp, and from like I think I caught Oldie when I was in America, like on like a school trip, and that's when I caught Oldie, and I just expected him to be.
Yeah, that kind of thing,
kind
like
of thing.
Goofy.
Yeah. And this album it shocked me so hard.
Because as well, it was like a 4-year hiatus, and just sort of comes back with this. It's an amazing album.
Oh,
but yeah, and then we'll move on to my number one, which is all-time favourite. I remember listening to it first and just being like, ugh, just like, what is this? Nah, I'm just gonna cut out King Kunta and sort of listen to the bops. And then I remember listening to it like before every single GCSE exam, and then sort of going on like, I think it was like Rolling Stone and getting the story of it and going through it, and then going through it like later on because I'd listened to it so much.
Yeah, this album is just impeccable.
By the way, the album is To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. If you didn't get
it is an impeccable concept rap album.
I think he continued on from Good Kid, Mad City in the best way possible.
Yeah, because it's like Good Kid, Mad City was all about trying to like be in this kind of like idol, from such a bad background, and trying to like trying to do good by it. And To Pimp a Butterfly is a perfect follow on because it's why when you're this person, why people jump on it and jump on your back and try and like take your kind of pride in where you come from and manipulate it in a way to keep you under. Yeah. And it's just so amazing because he breaks it down in such an intelligent, like palatable way.
Songs like Black of the Berry just make the album.
And I think the personal cuts just sort of show Kendrick's vulnerability and sort of just takes him apart. The first couple just takes him apart just to sort of build him up to be this new sort of more aware as a celebrity. And the final cut, Mortal Man, I love the little metaphor where he says, if shit hit the fan, are you still a fan? Yeah. Using the fan as like a metaphor for being a celebrity and as well as being a fan.
I think this album was great at showing his awareness of the kind of power that he's gotten from becoming this kind of like hood like icon. Like just like You is possibly my favourite off the album because it's just so emotional and you feel everything he's saying.
Yeah, and it's the final bar for me where he's just like, the world, no money can't stop a suicidal weakness.
Yeah, it's so goosebumps like every time. It's amazing.
You just have no words after listening to that song.
Or the full album.
All the full album.
Very true.
Wesley's Fury. It's just one of the best kickers to an
album. No,
album.
I listened to it again and I just sort of clocked, because he says, like, when I get famous, I'm going to put all my homies in front of the White House, and that's why that's the album cover. And as well, the line about Uncle Sam and sort of putting, because it's all supposed to be taking place before even Good Kid, Mad City or Section 80 came about, and how like Uncle Sam, it's like American dream sort of thing, and how basically when black people sort of achieve the American dream, they always just spend the money on flashing cars and never really look towards taxes. And then he says, I'm going to Wesley snipe your ass before 35, and I'm like, oh. It all didn't clock until maybe like a month ago. Yeah, and when it did, I was like, this is amazing.
It's so good.
But yeah, we'll move on to
now. We've got to deal with my list of 10 albums, which was possibly the most difficult challenge I've been set.
Because I wanted to see this personally, just because I know that you have such a broad music taste.
I was going to say, it's a mixed bag.
And I just want to see it all come into one.
It is a bit of a mixed bag that I've kind of like. There's some weirder stuff that I was tempted to put on it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be true to the fact that the albums that I've come back to the most recently, and to kick this off is Going Where the Lonely Go by Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
And I was put onto this record from Mike Seatown, who, I mean, whenever I'm going to anywhere for music, he's like my go-to more than Fantano. Like he just a lot of the albums that he's wanted, like, asked people to listen to have clicked with me so well. Yeah. And this album was one of them. It's just, when it comes to country music, it's the old lazy guitar, like it's a free spirit country. Yeah. And when I heard the first track on this, Going Where the Lonely Go, I was like, oh, it's one of them. Yeah. I like it. But I didn't expect the actual like personal depth to it that just struck me in the heart when it did.
Yeah, I think after listening to it, because when I just sort of never really went towards country music, I just thought it's not really my thing. And I think after hearing Old Town Road, I was just like, no, I'm just not going to bother.
See, I really liked Old Town Road. I actually still really like it.
The song and the concept were... It was a good song, good concept.
For what it was, it is really good. And, I think I've come around on it now. But like, going into this, I just sort of was expecting, old sort of Texan accent. Yeah. Some stringy guitars just sort of going. But then I think after listening to it, I really, really like this record.
It's so heartfelt and it's so bleak.
Yeah, just sort of melancholic with it, and just sort of dark.
Yeah.
It got me into country music a lot more. Like I found myself going through and looking at the related artists on Spotify and listening to some different people.
Merle is like class, man. It's just so you have that country bravado. Yeah. But he kind of lets it slip away on some of the songs. Like Why Am I Drinking? That hit me like a brick because I've struggled with that. Yeah. Half a Man, I was in a bath and I was listening to that and I think I'd had half a bottle of vodka.
Wow.
And I was in the bath and that was just, I felt it ripples through your soul because of how honest the kind of country genre is. Yeah. That's why I got annoyed when people were saying country and hip hop couldn't exist together, because they are the most honest genre to kind of exist, and the most organic, because anyone can do it. Yeah, anyone can do it, like unless you're shite. But, that's why that's number 10 on my list. And then number 9 is Speakerbox, The Love Below.
Love this
by
album.
Outkast.
Before going into it, I listened to it before. I think I tried to go through all of Outkast's discography. And so I listened to the first half and was like, Speakerbox, bangers, 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 bangers. Then went to The Love Below and it was just sort of like so slow. And it just sort of didn't really go well with me, which I was kind of annoyed about, to say that I prefer Andre. But then I think going back to it now and listening to it again, I just sort of like the whole concept of it and the way that he sort of structured it just so
Yeah.
good.
The Love Below did shine more for me personally.
Speakerbox was great because it's southern hip hop
Yeah.
to a T, and southern hip hop often gets overlooked because of that West and East Coast debate.
Yeah.
But it's so it's so good.
The people who we got on there as well to say for southern hip hop, like you got Killer Mike, you got Ludacris, you got Lil Jon,
And then you get Jay-Z.
and Jay-Z's on that Flip Flop Rock song is so because the beat as well because he says like ATLians out here and I'm just like it does have that sort of vibe to it. I just love it.
It's I love the idea that they both wanted to pioneer their own halves of the album, but I'll get onto Speakerbox and I'll get onto Love Below because the whole just kind of story and the skits behind that album, they just send me into this like ethereal plane of like I want a story like that, something so fun and so like carefree yet also like soaked in like this kind of desire for like just to be taken further with someone that you're like in love with. Well, it's so good.
I think it's a good sort of entryway into Andre's mind because as well as doing all the vocals and organising it, he did so much of the instrumentation on this side of the album.
It's so beautiful.
And like I think as well you see that in like because he did Look Ma No Hands and the other song they did, I think it was like last year or something, and like you see like the clarinet on it and sort of like how he's sort of progressed since.
Yeah, just like to highlight some of the songs like Flip Flop Rock, but it's just Prototype.
Prototype's amazing.
Prototype, like that's my Tinder anthem. It's so good. You got Prototype, Roses. It's one of the funniest songs
Roses
ever. It makes me piss when I hear that song. But and then
I love
you got Spread.
Spread.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's just so funny.
I personally love. I think this is just me wanting some Andre to rap, to be honest. But I think the final cut, a Life in the Day of Benjamin Andre.
Yeah.
I think the beat on that and just how raw he is, and Andre just always comes through with delivery and bars.
Yeah.
So it's always consistently so good, and I agree, that is my favourite track on the whole album.
I think that's why like Big Boy is often just because Andre's never had a solo work. He put a jazz project on SoundCloud, I think, last year.
Yeah, the two-song one.
Yeah.
Very good, two very good jazz tracks. Yeah. Andre's released 2 solo albums. Not Andre, Big Boy released 2 solo albums, and they're so hit or miss.
Yeah.
But it's such a shame because I want him to just have a good.
I think Big Boy deserves some credit, but I think as well it's so effortless for Andre.
Yeah. Let's get on to my next choice of album, which I threw in because it's not to say it's my favourite metal album is a lie because there's so much more harder stuff that I like. But as an album outside of context of genre, this album is just one of the most impressive like metal albums of its time.
It's just so full on throughout.
I've got it on vinyl. It's the full. If you get it on Spotify or if you manage to get it on like a vinyl or anything, they have a thing called the Full Dynamic Range Edition, and it's straight studio press, straight studio, like no major alterations in mixing or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's so heavy, and the album's from '89. And it sounds like something that a throwback band with the technology to make something sound heavier would do now, and fail to attempt at making it as heavy as this album did. It's just
Sorry, can we just get what the record is?
Oh, it's Realms of Chaos by Bolt Thrower. Sorry, I got so excited to talk about this album. It's just heavy. The guitars just pummel and rattle around your head like no one's business. And that was around the time where people were still like into thrash. Like Suicidal Tendencies or whatever.
Yeah.
But this, like, it's metal to the core, yet goes further than any other album from that time. And I can't resist it.
For me, I enjoyed some of the tracks on the album, but I feel like the album itself, it didn't pull together as much as I'd hoped. Because I'm not a massive metal fan, but I do quite like metal. And there's a few albums. There's a new one by I think it's Compa that you've probably not heard of. It's quite a small band, but it's really well built. And then I was expecting going into it to piece together really nicely, but for me it was just a bit
Yeah, it is like a kind of stop by stop kind of thing, but the sound, I think, of the entire thing just kind of envelops it in this nice atmosphere, like this nice swallowing kind of atmosphere that I can't get over, which is kind of what happens on my next album, which is Joy as an Act of Resistance by Idols, which was a very difficult choice because I back and forth between this and Brutalism like it's no one's business.
It's quite mad to say that both of them were released in the same year.
Pretty close, yeah. It's this was actually the second. They scrapped their initial album.
Oh wow!
This so they made an album and they scrapped it and came out with this one.
Yeah.
And
I just think this album, the instrumentation and just how harsh and how sort of brutal the delivery is and how blatant it is and the sort of attitude that they all have. Like I love Danny Nedelko. It is like the main one that you'd go to. But, I just think that's the most popular one.
It is the most popular one.
But I think the message within it as well. Like I just think that's such a good song.
I think they've shined as a UK punk outfit. Like I love UK vocals on anything.
Yeah,
and it is
especially if it's aggressive, snarky, and it has an accent.
Yeah, it is a proper strong accent.
like Slow Tie, for example.
Yeah. That's why I've proper fallen in love with Slow Tie.
Yeah.
But just everything about this album is just insane. The same with Brutalism, but this just has a much wider scope, which I think I enjoy.
I think this is a bit more developed.
Even the slow tracks.
Yeah, I love June.
Amazing. June's so like it's just crushing, but like the same like the rest of the album, it's crushing, but it uses a different angle to give off that kind of pain that you feel when listening to it.
Yeah.
Colossus is one of the greatest opening tracks to any like kind of rock punk outfit ever. That little switch up at the end, where it says, "I'm like Evel Knievel, I'll break bones for my people." I'm like Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'll put homophobes in coffins. Is one of the it's so good. But just kind of like the story and the kind of idea about like not wanting to split the nation apart, but wanting unity and wanting people to come together, like from all angles to make sure that everyone's doing okay. It's just such an important message, and I just love every second of this.
Right.
I did really enjoy the album as well. There was a lot of good tracks. It blended well. Like obviously instrumentation. Can't complain.
There's nothing, I've not actually managed to find a complaint about the album yet. But the next album, I only have one complaint with, and it's a song that I've never listened to.
Oh, go on. I want to see what song it is.
Life After Death by the Notorious B.I.G. And the song that I've never listened to is Fuck You Tonight featuring R. Kelly.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, yeah, obvious reasons, but go on, why is this?
This album is on my list because to me, in terms of 90s hip hop and that kind of era, this is the peak album. The story behind it, the real life situation that which happened before the album, the way Biggie raps, like there's no one before Biggie that sounded quite like him, and there's no one after that's been able to sound as good as him. He has some of the greatest bars and some of the greatest songs of all time, all in this one album.
I think what's good with Biggie though is that he didn't have that sort he wasn't really well educated, so his vocabulary wasn't as wide, and he was still able to put through some amazing rhymes.
My first favourite song of all time and my second favourite song of all time are on this album. That's how good this album is.
Oh, what song?
Somebody's Gotta Die.
Yeah.
The ending of that song gives me straight chills every time. The way that the song travels and it takes you on this journey, and you've got the vocals of the people talking about what's going on in the story in the background, and you can pick which ones to listen to, and then it just culminates into this problem that so many people have probably faced from where he's from, and you just feel it.
Yeah.
And then N-Words Bleed is one of the greatest storytelling rap songs of all time. Like that second verse, I've never felt a description of another person in a rap song better than how he described Ron on that second verse. I just imagine him, I see him and I've never got that before.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And then Missing You is such a heartfelt song. Like you feel the pain in him, the fact that he lost a friend before he could reach stardom with him like he did.
Yeah.
Like he never got out of that lifestyle. He was killed before he could enjoy the lavish nature of it all.
Biggie has always been good at, description and portraying emotion. And when you listen to his songs, you really do feel like you feel the emotion in the words in the tracks. It's just
I think as well with this record, it's such a good way to carry on from. Is it Ready to Die?
Yeah.
Because I just think because on Ready to Die, it was very samey. It was very, very good. It was a good record.
It's a straight hip hop.
But it's very, very samey, and the production is great, but it is just sort of like
the third verse though on Ready to Die is one of the greatest rap verses of all time.
I'm trying to think. I love the what, but on this record, I think the way he's just gone on from that and the different sounds that he's got on there, like Fuck You Tonight, and
classic
Hypnotize as well. 10 Crack Commandments. My personal favourite is Long Kiss Goodnight, just because of how brutal he is towards Pac.
The duo finale of Long Kiss Goodnight and You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You. Like You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You is the perfect closer to a posthumous record like this, because like you feel it, because he wrote a song about that, and you feel like there was probably some worry there, because he's talking about like how everyone will remember you more after you've gone. Yeah, and this album was a posthumous release, and hearing that just like it gives me like chills about it all. Yeah. It's so good. But then my next choice is The Life of Pablo by Kanye West.
Great album.
Mentioned.
Great album.
I think it's a very overlooked album because I think the way that he released it, because he put it on Tidal, didn't he? And then everyone sort of illegally downloaded the Tidal record. And then I just remember being with my mates and everyone just sort of writing it off. And then I remember the Spotify version coming out, the second version, and I was like, I'll go on then, I'll give it a listen. And then I was like, this is...
He really hindered the album with the way that he released it, because I think he wanted to go for that unfinished kind of...
Because he is a very... I think when he does... I think he's similar to me in the sense that, like, he always works harder if it's, like, rushed or if it's, like, close to a deadline.
Well, it's the same with Brockhampton, isn't it, really? Because Saturation, 3 albums in a year,
and then he did 10.
Smashed it, but then, it was a lot longer for Iridescent.
But it was 10 days. It was 10 days they made that album, though, still.
Yeah, they're in Abbey Road Studios, weren't they, for that? But, this album, I must admit, I kind of... I wrote it off when it first came out.
Yeah.
And I come back round to listening to it with the kind of after all the adjustments were made.
Yeah.
And it was just a completely different album. It sounded impeccable for an experimental album, especially what it was released as. Saint Pablo being added on at the end.
Yeah, I thought that
amazing.
I think Ultralight Beam is probably my favourite.
It is one of the most beautiful kind of genre crossing albums, tracks.
I think it was sort of the little tweaks that he made as well. I think because is it Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 where he adds the choir into it, and then that second drop just really, really nice. We could cut his vocals.
I'm so happy that he fixed the mixing on Wolves.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was so happy that he sort of put Sia and Vic Mensa back into it.
And even Frank's track is a great addition.
I mean, the vocals on that were so good that he felt the need to make it a separate song, and I see why, because the vocals are amazing. But I think we're strapped for time, so I'm going to have to rush on to the next one, which is The Wall by Pink Floyd, which I can talk for England about. My dad got me onto this, made me watch the movie, and all that stuff, and it's just a perfect rock concept album.
Yeah,
it's so... You feel the things that feed into the kind of emotion and the way that why things like the drugs and all that were eating at him. Like the fact that he lost his granddad and his dad, I think, in the war.
Yeah.
The fact that his teachers and his schoolmates were kind of fueled into this kind of like mental state that just upset him. Like his illnesses when he was younger, and it just culminates into this incredibly weird album.
I was just going to say, I think with the concept of it, because I listened to it for first and I was just like, all right, it's not, it's all right, it's good, but like, okay. But then I think I went through the concept, I went through all the songs, and I remember you told me when I listened to it to start it again at the end, and I realised why. Because I looked at the last lyric and it was like it goes back into the first, which is sort of showing that it's a complete cycle and it's a never-ending cycle, which I thought was amazing.
It's so good because it uses the idea of the war that kind of tore his family to shreds to kind of be the narrative for why his head is so messed up. Like, you've got the fact that when he turns like bad at the end, like a fascist like dictator becomes the voice in his head.
Yeah, and it's sort of the sort of people that his dad was fighting against, and I love that sort of side to it. It's just completely flipped.
My third album, which you may not have heard me speak about, was Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator.
Yeah, I was kind of interested to see what you had to say on this, because I remember how much you said you loved Ego, and then you came in and you put Flower Boy down. I was like, it's going to be an interesting one.
Ego was such a recent thing that I didn't know whether I could
you've got to
topple Flower Boy.
You got to let it sort of marinate
with it. And I didn't want to put 2 Tyler albums in my top 10 because that would show a bit of bias. But I mean, Flower Boy impressed me far more than Ego did because of how amazingly smooth and amazingly beautiful the whole thing sounded. Like, he's had beautiful tracks before, like you've got Fucking Young, and then the second part, Perfect.
Oh, but I love Perfect.
Perfect sounds so beautiful, and I didn't know whether that was going to happen at any point. And especially not for a full album. Yeah. I mean, like, you've got tracks like Who Dat Boy, or you've got I Ain't Got Time, that kind of break that aesthetic. But it's a perfect break. Yeah. But the whole album's just... It's so smooth.
Yeah, and seamless.
It's seamless.
Album.
He raps his ass off at some points as well, with some of like the most impressive, like...
Well, like in I Ain't Got Time, like you said, there's some great verses in there.
And then the opening verse...
Forward, I love that beat.
It's the beat is sampled from I think it's I don't want to say German, but some kind of prog rock group called Can.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
It's just... It's so, like, but he rides it with this kind of, like, discussion about, is he really happy where he is?
Yeah, I like that. I saw, you watched the conversation that he put out maybe like a good bit after the album. But after watching that, you sort of see, like, every single song he's trying to put forward a different emotion. Yeah. And I like that sort of concept to it.
It's amazing the amount of breadth that he kind of talks about, and how many topics are tackled without having to seem like he's just topic jumping. Yeah. Like, they all kind of link, and you don't go, oh, he's talking about this now, and then like 2 tracks later, this is his problem and that's his problem. It's a continuous problem. Yeah. And it doesn't detract from the listening experience.
Yeah, I love that bar. I'm trying to think, is it in I can't think what song it might be November. Where he's like, what if Who Dat Boy is rhetorical when the shit is over? Yeah,
it's November's a great track because it's like everything he's just talked about, everything that he's worked to make this album, and it's like, was it worth it? Yeah. Will it get him to feel like he did when he was at his happiest? And it's just so sad. Yeah. But I must say, Garden Shed.
I love Garden Shed.
It is one of the most gorgeous...
Estelle's feature on that.
One of the most gorgeous really hip-hop songs ever. The strings and Estelle.
Yeah. For me, I think Boredom is my favourite track on it. It's good. Overlooked a few times, but a lot of people do like it. It's a bit of like a solo.
I always end up coming back to 911. That's just because the second half of that track, I think the first half is sort of like a light-hearted version of what the second half is, and the second half's just like no filter.
Also, I didn't click, but when I watched the Dead Hip Hop review, and then Ken said about the fact when he says press that 911, it's like a gun being like he's holding a gun, and then the 1's the trigger, and then the 1 is his finger pulling it. Yeah. Like, he doesn't want like help him before he does something drastic like that. It's just, there's so many different ways you can look at it. Yeah, he just does it so unapologetically, like it's his album.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's undebatable that this is his most personal record, I'd say. Yeah. I think Ego's, the concept of it's really, really good, but I think Flower Boy is just one that's just sort of him opening his sort of thoughts to everyone.
my next album is God Loves Ugly by Atmosphere.
This is a very
Yeah.
deep sort of.
This is a deep one. So I was also turned on to this by Mike Seatown. And this guy is underground hip hop royalty.
Yeah.
And I was very upset that I hadn't discovered him before or been put onto it before. Because this album, it's amazing. Like, undeniably amazing. Like, that album's probably never going to shift from the number 2 spot.
Yeah.
Probably never. It's just, I've never heard someone talk about how bad things are, sound upset, sound frustrated and angry, but also sound like the coolest.
Yeah, he's
like
sort
as
of,
cool as a fan.
Yeah, the way he delivers, the emotion that he delivers is so impressive.
He's so energetic about it to say that it's such a bad situation that he's in.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I just love the production on it because it's sort of minimal, but at the same time they bring so much into it.
I really mess with the production on this album. It's just the things that are taken from it, like on Blame Game, the kind of reggae dub beat, and it's not an offensive reggae dub beat, which so many people have done. It's just so, everything about this is perfect, in my opinion. There's not a song on it or a part of it that I'm thinking, I wish that was different. It's itself. The bars on it are unreal. Like on God Loves Ugly, I wear my scars like the rings on a pimp.
Yeah.
I live life like the captain of a sinking ship. It's just there, like you feel it because he describes it with such visceral emotion and this kind of descriptions that you don't hear.
Yeah.
It's
like anywhere else.
Similar to what you said about Biggie, the way he just is so good at conveying emotion and describing things, and his just lyricism is always on point.
The descriptors, like just like discretion is the name of my cement feathered bird. Yeah. Like you get that image, and I don't think many people deliver such imagery as well as he does, because he doesn't sacrifice anything to make this amazing rap album. Like you hear people sacrificing something to accentuate a certain skill. Yeah. Like if someone's good at describing something, sometimes something falters for that because they can't really match the flow as well. But I don't know how he does it. Like there's enough. I can't falter a single like bit of delivery or a single thing that he says on the album. Oh, it's so good.
And then final album
is Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown.
This was coming.
What a good album.
This
is a banging album.
This album will never move from the number 1 spot as well, I think. It is experimental hip hop to the max. Balls to the wall, in your face, will stomp you out and laugh like a maniac while doing it.
The sample game on this is amazing as well. The Lost sample is my fave.
Oh, what's it called? Flame of Love by, I can't remember the actual name of the artist. And then you've got back to Pink Floyd on Ain't It Funny. Yeah. The weird like kind of horns that go. Yeah. That's from the drummer's solo outfit. Oh wow. It's called Worthing, and it's Nick Mason's Fictitious Sports. Basically, he had a load of producers. Paul White takes control on most of the production. Yeah. And he's known for being a weird producer anyway. But he has beats like from Alchemist. And it's just like, he went to Alchemist and it's like, give me the strangest shit that you'd never give to anybody else. And he was like, all right. Probably had something that he just was like, go with it. And he rides it effortlessly.
I mean, Danny Brown, the way he can just bend his voice around any beat, it just shows on this album, because there's some of the beats that you think most artists would never be able to even come close to it, but then he can just keep the energy up, and it just works.
I love the way he changes his voice. Is it on Tell Me What I Don't Know? And songs like that, and he just sounds so normal to the point where I think, has he got someone else on this track?
Yeah, I thought that at first. He's so good at knowing what needs to be done to make the beat that he's presented with work.
It just shows his creativity as an artist.
Yeah, it just shows his ability, because I don't think any other rapper in the world would be handed that Ain't It Funny beat and go, I can do that easily, and attack it with the confidence and the ferocity that he did.
Swagger that he just had on it. It was just...
Same with Gold Dust. Like, that is literally just, it's literally punk guitars and a drum beat, and he goes at it like you'd see like Tech Nine go at a speedy rhythm, and it's like, why would you attempt that as a rap artist? Why would you go, here's a post like punk kind of beat, and you'd attack it like it was nothing, like it was just the easiest beat?
I think,
and he struggles, but it adds to it, because the song's about him struggling with the fact that he's kind of, the more and more he becomes kind of unaffected by the drugs that he's taking, the more and more he gets closer to pushing himself over that edge. And the beat represents that, because he has to push himself to the limit to keep on it.
I think that's good about it as well, is that he kept a theme going, like the downward spiral and sort of the whole drugs and the attitude towards everything.
He's so good at kind of not embellishing it, because it's like, here's the stuff that I've done. Like I've seen him in interviews. He's done some of the wildest shit ever. Like, but he never glorifies it. It is always that aftermath to it, where he's like, just like, don't do it. Like, it's so good. And the closing track, it just kind of calmly whittles out, and you feel like he's angry at something, and you don't know what it is, and you're just kind of there like worried. Like, I wouldn't want him to be angry at me.
Before we go off, can we just talk about the elephant in the room that is really Doe?
Oh, this is my question. Who killed that track?
Earl. No doubt in my mind. I think.
Earl.
I think Earl.
I'm going to agree.
Because obviously Earl doesn't do features, if I'm honest.
No.
Like, he doesn't really do them, and he just comes on this track.
Neither does Danny Brown, really.
Yeah.
No.
Well, he just came on this track, and obviously Kendrick and Absol are sort of like the same sort of, they brought the same sort of energy to it, like the craziness, and Earl just thought, fuck you, I'm doing what I want, I'm going to say what I want.
Yeah,
that's a tough question though. There is a lot of,
I think they are all good verses, but Earl, just the individuality to it and the I don't care attitude that he has just sort of tips it for me.
I think the testament to Danny Brown on that track is possibly, out of all four of those artists, he might be considered to some people the least known or least liked. Like, you've got Absol, which is a Top Dog mainstay. You've got Kendrick Lamar, which is Top Dog poster boy, and you've got Earl Sweatshirt, which is like backpack rap god, like for this time, and you've got Danny Brown, which is just one of the most eclectic faces in the hip hop game, and he goes, "Fuck you, it's my album, I'm going first." And in my opinion, bodies pretty much nearly everybody on the song, apart from Earl, who are so close. Like, he delivers some of the funniest, some of the darkest, some of the best well put together like lines.
I just
on
broke
that
up with
album.
my bitch because we didn't argue enough.
I
think as well, though, you got to look at that though. Kendrick was coming off To Pimp a Butterfly, and Earl was coming off I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. Like, that's kind of mad to have both of them on the album at that time.
The reason Kendrick's on it is Danny Brown recorded something for To Pimp a Butterfly, and it was taken off because
Kendrick paid him back.
Yeah, so paid him back by having a verse in his. He was also meant to be on A$AP Mob's debut on the first track, and they took him off that.
Oh, Lamborghini High.
Yeah,
damn.
They took him off that. Just because he sounds...
I think for how experimental he is well respected.
Yeah.
Throughout.
He has people
industry
everywhere loving him, but I wouldn't want to do a song with him. He'd kill me. I wouldn't risk it. Like,
maybe that's why he gets no features, just because.
I think the people who would are either like the artists like Earl or JPEG Mafia, who are like
know that they can hold the road against it.
Because I was watching an interview with it was Crooked Eye, King Crooked, and he has like this thing called Crook's Corner, and he was talking to Snow the Product, because she was like, I think she was annoyed that she keeps getting taken off like tracks that she's put verses on, and he's an industry veteran, and he was like, whenever you get taken off a record, it's usually because you bodied that shit and they don't want you to be they don't want you to be the highlight of it.
That's what, because Kanye West did that on Monster, because Nicki Minaj's verse was so hard, he was debating taking it off. And like when they all like you get like verse rewrites and stuff like that, and if they can't rewrite anything better, gone,
you're taken.
But that's that's our top 10 albums.
Yeah, we got through it.
We've got through it. Just about. I don't think the rest of our episodes will be this long. I think it's just a good way to introduce our sort of music taste and what we're going to bring. So I think next couple of episodes we're going to have some sort of let's argue type deal with Alex and
I might defend some people who have been wrongly done over in the music industry.
There we go, and that's what Michael's going to bring. We should be back in maybe around the same time in August.
Yeah,
but thank you for listening. If you have been,
thank you.
And I would just like to say, check us out on Instagram. We Jam Packed. Check us out on Spotify, Jam Packed Podcast. We've got our July jams on there if you want fancy a listen.
Yeah, it's a great playlist. There's some good songs.
I'm very happy with it, to be fair.
I think it's come out really,
it's
really well.
It's a good mix.
But yeah, okay. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and
Cheers,
we'll see
guys.
you when we next see you.
Toodles.